being selected as well. It's not like, oh, you're selected, well done, amazing things. No, you will have to face a lot of people who would tell you, how to become more sellable.
You're listening to Foodie Canteen. I'm your host, Castle Lim. And in this podcast, I'm sitting down with Southeast Asia's leaders, entrepreneurs, and content creators in the F&B space. You will learn about their trade secrets, or you'll just find them as your next door neighbor. This show is supported by Good Foodie Media. For foodie who wants to connect to the world through food, they curate the best spots to eat and drink in Malaysia, Bangkok, and Singapore. Check them out on Instagram for more. Today, we have a notable chef joining us on the show. She's hosted over 50 food shows throughout her career, and we couldn't have caught her at a better time. Listen in for her story. Hey, Anis, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling today?
I'm good. I've been busy at home cooking every day.
So, for our listeners who are listening for the first time, can you tell us what you do?
Okay. My name is Anis Nabilah. I am actually a TV chef. Um, I am a chef. I studied culinary arts. I worked in a hotel for a while, but about oh God, how long ago was that? In 2007, I started doing my first show. I was called for an audition for my first cooking show, and since then, I've been doing cooking shows.
Where was your earliest memory of being in the kitchen?
My earliest memory of being in the kitchen was when I was about, oh goodness, 5, 6 years old. I was very, very young. So my mother, I'm one of eight. I've got 7 siblings. So my mother was a working mom. So every day after she comes home from work, she would want to spend time with the children, but she would also like to cook for us. So after work, she would like take all of us with her into the kitchen and just sit around her, and she will prepare meals for us.
So, I mean, you were 10, right? I read that when you wanted to make the perfect telur dadah, and that's how you started like experimenting, cooking in the kitchen.
Yes. So I was actually 9 years old. That was my first time cooking on my own in the kitchen, because before that it was all assisting. So I used to assist my mother and my late grandmother a lot in the kitchen. So my mom used to like give us different tasks, like, helping her with cakes and stuff. So we would be helping her mix colors into her rainbow marble cakes and such. But the first ever time I went into the kitchen on my own was when I was 9 years old. I was really hungry, and my late grandmother, because my mom was at work, both my parents were at work, and my grandmother used to babysit us. So, but she was occupied with the younger siblings. And I remember just being super hungry. And even my younger sister was hungry as well. So I was like, you know what? I think I can fry an omelette. I think I can make the lodada. So I went to the kitchen, because before that, we weren't allowed to just do anything on our own in the kitchen, because it would, to be fair, it is quite dangerous, to be handling fire and sharp objects at that age. But I was pretty confident, and my late grandmother said, "Okay, just be careful. Like if anything, just scream." So I went into the kitchen and fried myself an omelette, and I remember thinking that was the best omelette I've ever made in my life. It was the first omelette I've ever made in my life.
Did you already know that you wanted to become a chef, like at a young age?
No, actually no. I didn't plan on being a chef back then. Well, one, because in Malaysia, um back then we're talking about, 15 years ago, even before that, they don't really call it chef. They call it tukang masak or cooks. Even if you studied culinary arts, even if you have a diploma in culinary arts, you will still just be a cook until you earn the title chef, which would take you about, 5, 6, 7 years in a professional kitchen. So it wasn't something that was um, promoted back then. It wasn't like even in school, like no one I knew have ever said, I want to, my ambition is to be a chef. Um, I've always loved cooking, but I never um, entertained the idea of being a chef back then because I did not want cooking to be my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember my mom, she was saying, because after I graduated from high school, I told her I wanted to read law and I wanted to do journalism, read law or journalism or psychology. And then my mom was like, you'll do great in all of that, but, why don't you give culinary a try since you really enjoy cooking? And I said, Mom, I would love to, but I just don't want to get bored of it. It's something that I love doing. It's my hobby. I don't want to one day wake up and say, I'm done. I have to go to work and cook. And then I come home, I'll be cooking. But then she said to me, because my mother, she was in HR for a really long time. So she said, you know how many people I have to deal with every day who hates their job? Like so many. Do you know how lucky you would be if you have a job that you truly love? If you have if you can do something you're passionate about, and make money. And then I said, fine, I'll give it a try. No promises. If I don't enjoy it, if it's not what I think it's going to be, then, I'm not going to proceed and you can't force me. And then she was like, well, yeah, I'm just glad you're going to try something you love doing. So I enrolled myself in a culinary school. And I remember like the first week, I fell absolutely in love with it. I remember thinking, you know what, this is my calling. There's so much more to learn. Just even though I felt like I was already good in cooking at that point, there was still so much to learn.
Yeah, and you went on to school at the Food Institute of Malaysia. How was the
Yes.
experience like for you?
Oh, it was really, really good. So I have a diploma in culinary arts because back then they didn't offer any degree in Malaysia. So I remember thinking, so the diploma is in classical French. And I remember just, being mind blown in every class, like learning the French terms of things, learning the rules, the do's and don'ts, what do you call that? The process from like wrapping the ingredients to, producing something that is amazing. It blew my mind. And back then, we didn't have YouTube, you can't just simply Google recipes. You have to have like a recipe book. And even if you have a recipe book, you can't replicate everything. So like being able to learn, like for example, the basic mother sauces, that alone blew my mind because I'm like, oh my goodness, from this sauce, I can make this. From this sauce, I can make that. Oh my God, the possibility is endless. And I remember just completely falling in love with it. And I did so well that I represented Food Institute of Malaysia at a few international culinary competitions, and I won a few medals as well.
As of right now, we are speaking, you have hosted more than 50 shows. Bring us back to the first show. How did that opportunity come about?
Okay, so the first show is called Icip-Icip. That was done in 2007. Icip-Icip actually, it's quite cool. This was how I started basically in this TV industry. Um, the producer, my first ever producer, is Aziz Fauzi. She is a pioneer in TV3. So she contacted a lecturer of mine. And at that point, I've already graduated and I was working part time in a hotel in Kuala Lumpur. So she contacted my lecturer and asked if my lecturer knew anyone, female culinary graduate or female chefs that would be able to audition for this show that she came up with the concept. So my lecturer called me and I said, fine, I'll take the day off. I'll come and do the audition. So I did, and I remember just being super paranoid because I had to speak proper Malay, like news Malay at that point, sort of. And I remember just really struggling because at home we speak with a little bit of northern accent, Penang accent, because I grew up with my late grandparents. They lived with us, and they speak the most thickest Penang. They have the thickest Penang accent, and I have that when I speak normal Malay back then. Um, so I was like, you know what? It's either I go that way or I'll speak with, bahasa pasar with a little bit of English, and Malay mix. They were like, no, no English, no English. So when I did the audition, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to speak with my Penang accent. And I did that. And they were like, oh my goodness, you don't look like someone who can speak, with Penang accent. And I laughed. So, and after that, they told me, okay, we're going to call you for the second audition. And I didn't hear from them for about a month. And then they called me. They said, you got it. So I was really surprised, but the show is really, really cool because it's a collaboration between Indonesia and Malaysia, actually. Icip means, it's an old Malay word, but it's still used in Indonesia. It means taste. So the producer is from Indonesia. His name is Jaka Legawa. And he had this concept that was completely different to all the other shows that were available in Malaysia. He said, I don't want anything to be measured in bowls. You're going to prepare everything on screen. And I was like, that's crazy. But it was also so fun. So I'll be like picking out the onions and everything and showing people how to peel and slice, which, at that point, even now, you can still see some of those, tips on TikTok or online everywhere, how to chop onion, like the best way to chop onion. But back then, it wasn't showcased on TV shows. So I believe that we were the first ones to do it here in Malaysia. So the show did really, really well. And in 2009 or 2010, it was bought by Asian Food Channel, and it became the first Malaysian show that was aired on Asian Food Channel.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you've been in the industry for 15 years now. Your shows have, like you said, always been on TV, it's all full crew, lights and camera. But now you have shifted to making recipes on social media platforms like Instagram.
Yeah.
Like what you said previously, you're showing these tips and tricks on the big screens, and then now you're doing all this like TikTok hacks and Instagram hacks.
Yeah.
How does that feel for you?
It feels great. I mean, I feel like, the content that I am coming up with, that I'm sharing with my followers, are a little bit different to, some of the contents that you see, like the quick, cooking videos that you see online. Because I started, because of my background in TV, I'm so used to giving like informations, without people asking for it. Because I remember when when I just started, I remember, I struggled. Like I'm sure everyone else who had no experience on TV. I remember just thinking to myself, like, how do I, because I'm literally talking to myself and there'll be like what, five, six cameras around me. And I'll be talking to the cameras. I mean, there are crews behind the camera, but they're not going to talk to me. So I'm technically talking to myself. And I remember thinking, you know what? There's no way that my audiences, they can reach out to me, because again, at that point, I had no, uh, there's no YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and Facebook. You didn't have fan page. You have that personal Facebook. You have to, request for friend requests and stuff like that. So there was no way of for the audience to reach out to me if they had any questions. So I remember, like, everything I did, you know, I I had to include tips and the do's and don'ts, and in case if anything, if something were to happen to your dish midway cooking, this is what you can do to fix it. So I remember having to do that. So my my producer is Anis Fauzi. I remember she told me, Anis, the best thing for you to do is to just go in front of the mirror like every day and just talk to yourself. Like, and how you would like whatever you're doing, like if you're cooking, if you're slicing the onion, and you don't want to you want to avoid cutting your fingers or whatever, like how will you do that? Just say that out loud. So that's how I practice, and that is the kind of content that I'm doing now as well. Like, so, because I'm so used to doing that on screen, on TV. So I want to make sure that, when I share my recipes, it's not just about sharing the recipe, because anyone and everyone can share recipes. I can just say, okay, for you to make, say, ayam masak merah, you need onion, garlic, blah, blah, blah. I can say that. Anyone can say that. But it's all these little tips and the do's and don'ts. And if anything were to happen, this is what you do. Those are the things that I've included in my content.
So right now in this market, we can see that a lot of people are making food videos and teaching people how to cook online. But back when you first started in 2007, you kind of took the industry by surprise because it was mostly dominated by men. We see people like Chef One, but you were young and a female, you're in your 20s, and people thought you didn't quote unquote fit the celebrity chef mold. I mean, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you break through that?
Well, yes. So when I started, there was a lot of, comments like, you're not, she's too young to be teaching people to cook. Our audience are mostly housewives and they know how to cook. Why would they learn from this girl? So I had a lot of that, and of course, like, oh, she's a woman. It's harder to sell women because most of them who are established are men. And I remember, I mean, I was very young. I was 21 years old. I did not. I mean, I had experience, and although I was working for about slightly more than a year, I was in like international competitions, and I've had to come up with dishes that are of international standards, from start to finish, from prepping to plating and everything. And those were the skills that I had that most housewives who are able to cook delicious food did not have. So I remember I told everyone, this is what I wanted to share. I wanted to share to people that if you feel like having, like a classical French food, or, Italian food, or any Western dishes, you don't have to necessarily eat out. I can teach you how to do that. I will not, in the beginning, I remember I did not want to focus so much on local food because I knew that, okay, my audience might be um, housewives and stuff who are used to cooking local food, you know. So I told the producers, I wanted to show something that something simple like cream of mushroom soup. Back then, people were having the canned cream of mushroom soup, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna show you how to make cream of mushroom soup from scratch. And this was in 2007. Um, so I did I couldn't really overcome what all those not couldn't I didn't really what do you say like fight them with whatever comments they had about me, about me being a woman, about me being young, because there's no point of like fighting with them, of like trying to tell them, hey, listen, I can do this, I can do that. I just told my producer, I'm like, don't worry, I know what I want to teach them. And even if it doesn't work out, I'd be happy that I'm able to teach them something that I feel like no one's ever taught them before. Um, so yeah, I basically dealt with it by um, giving my best, giving my best to the show.
Wow. I mean, 21, I wouldn't say it's, yeah, I think 21 years old now, they are pretty mature. But we see the rise of like content creators, there's also a lot of like, online, like harsh comments. And for you to be able to tell yourself at 21 that I'm just going to do my best and show you what I've got. Not to say prove to them, but to bring the best recipe and show you and calming yourself down. I think that's just so powerful.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, there were tears and stuff. I mean, it's tough, especially when you feel like being okay. How do I'm just gonna be completely honest with you right now. Being on TV and coming up, like being on TV and coming up with content online is two completely different things. When you are on TV, you are, people tell you you are selected, but you're happy. Like I remember being extremely happy. I'm selected, out of everyone in Malaysia, I'm the only one who's selected to be on TV. And back then we did not have content creator. It was all like people know you if you're on TV. But being selected as well, it's not like, oh, you're selected, well done, amazing things. No, you will have to face a lot of people who would tell you, how to improve yourself, how to become more sellable. And it wasn't easy on me because some of the comments I felt was harsh, and I felt like I had no control over. Like I was told that I'm not Malay enough. I was told that it's hard to sell me because I'm a woman. I was told that it's hard to sell me because I'm not married. Therefore, I do not have the maternal instinct to be teaching people how to cook. Those are the things that I remember it got to me, and I remember it was really, really hard for me to accept those comments because there was nothing I can do about it to change. I wasn't going to get married just so that people think, I can teach better if I'm married. There's nothing I can do about my gender, or nothing I can do about my looks. If I don't look 100% Malay, I don't look 100% Malay. Um, but I remember, just thinking like, I had to go through all of this because I had to toughen myself up. Because if I wanted to go far, there was a lot more things that will be thrown at me. And true enough, when social media blew up, people felt like they have the rights to say anything they want about you, and they did. But I remember at that point, I was already quite um, immune, I would say, to negative comments. I mean, I take whatever I can. If it's constructive criticism, I will take it, and I would use it to be better. Because in the end, my work, it it I wouldn't say like, oh, I am seeking acceptance from everyone. It's not that, but my job is that I am providing my services to people, and if they have feedbacks and everything, I should listen to them so that I can provide better service. um so, but those that give out comments, nasty comments, that doesn't make sense, I block them out. And I've had experience in blocking them out because I had to go through that when I started my career as a TV chef.
What's your favorite dish to cook?
Oh, it changes from time to time, honestly. uh, right now I love cooking Italian food. I love cooking pasta. I also love cooking traditional Malay food. Um, I am a little bit obsessed with kari kepala ikan at the moment. I think I'm obsessed with it because I miss my mother. And I remember back then when I lived with her, when I used to live with her, I never cooked curry. I can, but I didn't want to because my mom makes amazing curries, and I don't want my curry, like anyone to compare my curry with hers. But ever since I lived on my own, like every time I miss her, I'll cook curry. I also love another dish. I think it's one of my favorite things to cook. It's masak lemak daging salai. It's such a special dish. It takes so long to make. I only ever make it once a year because I'll smoke my beef on my own. I have to go around looking for coconut shells and husk, smoke them for 5 to 6 hours, and then slowly braise it in, all the spices and coconut milk. It's such an amazing dish. I love cooking and eating it, but it's only a once a year affair for me.
After this lockdown, even as the country opens up, people are starting to cook more at home. For beginner cooks, do you have any tips for them?
Okay, this is something that I found really, really helpful as a student. What I used to do is I used to go to the grocery store. This was when it was a lot safer to, chill at the grocery store for hours. And I used to take pictures of the ingredients, whether it's vegetables, spices, um, meat, seafood stuff. I would take pictures and of the ingredient together with the label. I would smell it. Right now, I don't advise anyone to do that, but back then it was safe to do that. So I would sniff like every herb, every spice to just get to know to get to know the smell, because you can learn so much just by smelling. Like before you taste it, when you smell, you can learn so much. Like you can kind of know the flavor of the particular ingredient. So I used to do that to sort of sharpen my senses. And of course, like the things that I would buy, sometimes I would just buy ingredients that I've never worked with and go home and read as much as I can about it and sort of experiment with it. So I know how to work with those ingredients. I believe that, that enables me to come up with recipes, to write recipes easier, because I knew, the flavor profile, I knew the smell, and I know how, what to pair it with, what would complement it. And I think that is important. Like, I mean, I think most of us I mean, if you eat, you'll be able to know the basic ingredients like onions and garlic and, all of that because you consume it. Especially in Asian cuisine, like we use a lot of those spices, ginger and such. But there are other different spices that we might not have used or we have eaten it, but we don't know the usage of it because you don't cook, for instance, like curry. There's so many ingredients that goes into curry, and some people they follow the recipe, but they don't know what is the function of those ingredients. What kind of flavor does it bring to your curry? So I think if you are new, and I think this is the best thing you can do if you are new, is to learn this so you have a more deeper understanding of the things that you're cooking, because cooking to me is not just about throwing a bunch of things in a pot or in a pan. It is really getting to know every little ingredient, what it does to your food, what it does to your body. um, that was, one of the reasons why I was very happy to do TV. When I started, like they asked me, I remember sorry, I'm just going back a little bit, but during my audition, they asked me like, why should we choose you? And I said, I'm a student. I'm a culinary student, but I don't have a lot of money. I'm given a fixed allowances. And every day, like during lunchtime, I have to go to the shop nearby and just, have rice and sometimes rice with soup and, fried egg. Which, I enjoy, to be honest, but I knew there was a lot of things that I didn't want that went into those dishes, like a lot of preservatives and all the things that's not really good for your body. And I ate because I had to eat. But um, I know that, if I'm given the option, if I had time during lunch to cook my own lunch, I would have done that. So the reason why I really wanted to do it was just to encourage people to cook, because cooking isn't hard. And when you cook your own meals, you know exactly what you're putting in it. And, automatically, you know exactly what you're putting in your body. So I think that is very, very important. So if you are, a beginner, you're just learning how to cook, I think, learn about the ingredients that you're using, learn about the benefits. Like Asian food, we are it's so rich in spices, and most spices have a lot of benefits. It's just that we don't talk about it a lot. We don't discuss these things. So we talk about like, oh, this is going to add a delicious taste. But you should put in the effort to learn more about the ingredients so you know exactly what you're putting into your body.
Can you share with us some of the exciting projects that's coming out that you're working on right now?
Well, right now I'm doing a lot. I'm doing more content for my social media accounts. But I'm also planning another book. So I've done my first book, but it was a collaboration with Thermomix. But this book is going to be like a book on its own, like a recipe book on its own. I'm still working on the what do you call that? The concept and everything, but I kind of know what I want or how I want it to be. And, I'm excited to feature some of my favorite dishes and the little bit of stories behind it, how it's sort of evolved throughout the years. Because some of the recipes that I make that I've been sharing are recipes that I learned from my mother or my late grandmother, but somehow evolved in the last few years because I tested out a lot and I tweak it, make it my own, add some of my favorite ingredients in it. So yeah, I'm excited to share not only the recipes, but also a little bit of stories behind the recipes in the book, hopefully.
For our listeners who's listening, who is looking to perhaps maybe be a TV chef or go down the path that you have taken, do you have any advice for them?
Oh, TV chef. I think, well, just you need to equip yourself with knowledge. I think that is very, very important. I have never, I've never really, even when I started, I never thought about the fame, the fame that comes by doing this. I've always focused on the content that I was coming up with, that, the knowledge that I was sharing. So I read a lot, even now, like before I go to sleep, like at any time of the day when I have time, I will just be reading, I'll be Googling, I'll be reading. Because to me, you need to have the knowledge before you teach. You can't, you cannot, just teach people when you don't fully understand things. So also teach what you know. Don't, if you don't understand Italian cuisine, don't teach Italian cuisine. You need to, it's to me, this is me personally, I feel like, especially when you are doing different types of cuisine, you need to be respectful. You know how Malaysians are so um, passionate when it comes to Malay food, and the whole MasterChef UK ordeal, the whole thing about, oh, crispy rendang, you know, people get angry. And like, I get it. I'm like, you shouldn't be saying something like that when you don't know Malaysian food. So it is our duty as Malaysians to educate them. Okay, it's not necessarily like you cannot have crispy chicken skin when you make rendang because it's supposed to be braised. If you don't like, soft chicken skin, then you can always remove the chicken skin. Traditionally, chicken rendang is made with ayam pencen, or like old rooster. So it is because it requires braising for a really long time. If you use, the normal chicken now, you cannot cook the traditional rendang. So these are some of the things that we need to know before we get angry and attack people for not understanding our cuisine. And having said that, if you want to be doing this and you want to teach Italian food, for instance, make sure you are respectful when you do that, because you want people to, when they talk about Malaysian food, you want them to be right and you want them to know what they're saying. The same thing applies, when you cook Italian food, you cannot just say, okay, I'm going to add this, that, because I'm making my own version. I mean, I get that. You make your own version of things. But if you're making carbonara, you can't just say, oh, yeah, I have to add cream. That's not right, because traditional carbonara doesn't have cream. So teach what you know. And before you teach, make sure you learn. There are recipes that I've been doing for 10 years, that I still am learning about it. I'm still learning about the history of it, because, there's not many publications on it. There's not many stories behind it. So it's all about, talking, discussing, having a healthy conversation about it. And I'm not shy to admit that. And I think, everyone should have that that mentality. It doesn't mean that you are famous, you have a lot of followers on Instagram who follows your recipe, that means you don't need to learn anymore. It is your duty, it is your responsibility, especially if you have a lot of followers, if you are sharing your knowledge with a lot of people, be respectful. Because you want people to also be respectful when portraying or sharing our dishes.
Thank you so much, Chef Anis, for coming on the show and spilling us all this kitchen wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You have just listened to Foodie Canteen. Special thanks to Chef Anis for sharing her story. The show is produced by me, your host, Castle Lim, and co-written by Mei Rui Kwa. Foodie Canteen podcast is made possible by the excellent team at Good Foodie Media. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Foodie Canteen for more. Follow us for brand new episodes every Friday. Thanks for listening.